Hello everyone, back again with Blockbuster Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the thriller films from 2017 titled Revenge. Before we get to the storyline, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Blockbuster Recaps and have a great day. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the movie. The broad desert plain is interspersed with majestically large rocky mountains, perfect for desert animal hunters. Soon later, a chopper with Richard and his fiancée Jennifer on board arrives. They will now proceed to Richard's home, situated in the desert. However, before Richard and his friends go on their yearly hunting trip, they want to spend some time together. So the pilot gives Richard some peyote as a welcoming gift for his passengers just before takeoff. Soon after Richard enters the home, he spots the seductive Jen, who seems to be aware of all male wants. Well, they had a long, passionate quarrel in bed after that. Richard receives a call from a woman later in the day saying that this man already has a wife and kids. As far as his wife is aware, Richard is merely heading to the desert to hunt. Thus, their conversation flows exceptionally nicely. The following morning, Jennifer walks to the kitchen to fetch some water while just wearing her underpants. Then, unexpectedly, she is taken aback by Richard's companion's appearance, who have come a day early from their scheduled hunting expedition. Because he had planned to keep his relationship with Jen a secret, Richard is displeased to see their early arrival. Therefore, Richard is forced to let his two buddies stay there because they have already arrived. Stan is one of them, and Dimitri is the other. We can observe that Stan appears incredibly eager to view their appearance of Jen when they are introducing themselves. They take in the spectacular views of the desert surroundings as they unwind by the pool as night falls. With his binoculars, Dimitri is having fun, and he's become curious about the gift the pilot gave Richard. Richard describes the substance as a highly potent psychedelic with a tremendous effect. He said that such a small amount of the drug might destroy an entire football team. Richard explains that when the adverse effects set into misuse, someone sawed off their limb without feeling anything. Richard tells Jennifer to put it in a safe place to avoid that stuff from becoming a source of contention among his friends. But it turns out that Jen is also intrigued by the narcotics she has just learned about. So instead of keeping it in a safe place, Jennifer conceals it in her necklace. After that, Jennifer walks out of the house and performs a seductive dance to keep the men entertained. With the night's pleasures, Jennifer has transformed into a showgirl amid men fascinated by her. Especially for Stan is the most passionate, and he is very excited as Jen invites him to join her in her sensual dance. The next day, Jennifer, who is just woken up, is greeted by Stan and taken to breakfast with him. Unfortunately, at this moment, Richard is not at home. So Stan tries to take advantage of the situation to get closer to Jen, but it is miserable for him because Jennifer ignores him and returns to her room for no apparent reason. But even so, this man doesn't want to give up and continues his efforts in Jen's room. Finally, with his disappointed tone, Stan asks why Jennifer is avoiding him even though he thought this woman appeared to like him the night before. Jennifer then responds that Stan isn't the type of guy she is interested in, particularly given his short stature. Stan is offended by those words. To put it another way, he hates that girl but wants that girl to fulfill his uncontrollable lust. Jennifer, afraid, can only surrender to this man's sexual assaults. Shortly after, Dimitri shows up but doesn't say anything and stands there staring at his friend's act. Since Dimitri doesn't want to interfere, he'd instead leave than get involved. So he turns on the TV and increases the volume so he wouldn't hear Jen's screams. After a few hours, Richard returns to the house, and he feels strange to see that his two friends have fallen completely silent. Stan then tells Richard there's been a slight problem with Jen, but he doesn't say what it is. When Richard goes to see Jen, this woman asks him to call the helicopter immediately because she wants to go home. When his mistress keeps crying, Richard seems to know what has happened, so he walks out of the room and scolds his friends for their actions. When Jen wakes up again, she keeps saying she wants to go home. But Richard only says that his friends will come and apologize to her. Plus, he has also given her a large sum of money so that she will forget about the whole thing. Jen can now not keep her emotions any longer, and she threatens to tell Richard's wife about their affair if the helicopter doesn't pick her up. But then, Richard's outbursts of emotions scare Jen, causing her to run away from that place finally. When Richard's two friends notice Jen running away, they join him in chasing after her. A few moments later, Jen's escape comes to a halt when she sees the dead-end cliff in front of her. In the end, Richard and his friends arrive at the place and corner her near the cliff. Richard then uses all of his pleadings to express his regret for his actions. He also tries to calm Jen down by calling the pilot to take her home immediately. But as a result, as she hears the voice of the guy who nearly murdered her, her wrath intensifies. Stan and Dimitri are startled by this, and they don't expect Richard will have the courage to push her off to die. Richard continues by saying that if they let Jen leave, they risk receiving a 15-year prison term as punishment. To put it another way, Richard worries that his secret of having an affair in the desert will be revealed to his wife. After that, Richard and his friends return to their house to pick up their hunting equipment. They will return later to clean up any evidence of the murder and continue their hunting trip as if nothing had happened. The scene then switches to Jen, who is still in a stabbed state and is starting to be swarmed by ants. Shockingly, she is still alive because the tree branches may not have hit her vital organs. With her body stuck by a shrub, Jen tries to free herself and notices the lighter she often carries. Jen then expends all her strength and manages to grab it. The dry bush is then attempted to be burned, leading to its breakage and allowing her to flee while still having a branch lodge through her body. On the other side, Richard and his friends make their way to Jen's location to clean up her body. Fortunately, the sound of their vehicle can be heard by Jen, prompting her to move quickly from that spot. Unfortunately, the condition of her stomach, which is still stuck by a shrub branch, makes it difficult for her to move. But she still manages to hide just in time and surprises the three when they realize Jen is no longer in that spot. They then assume that she had been rescued or that she had run away on her own. Therefore, the three men will try to find a way down the cliff to confirm Jen's whereabouts. When Jen hears they have left, she takes this opportunity to walk away from where she is. However, since the distance to go around to get down the cliff is too far, these three men can only get to that spot when it is dark. At this point, they start to wonder how Jen could disappear, and at the same time, they manage to find traces of Jen's blood, so they immediately follow the blood trail. However, as they continue to follow the path of blood, their journey comes to a halt as the blood trail ends in a lake. So the three of them then plan to split up to find Jen, but Stan seems to be hiding his fears all along, and he prefers to wait in the car if she returns. Meanwhile, Jen, bleeding profusely, can still escape with her remaining strength, but she can hear the sound of a vehicle looking for her from a distance. In her panic, Dimitri appears with his quad bike and goes away after not seeing Jen there. It turns out that Jen is hiding by holding her breath in the water. Once she has made her way to the shore, she sees Dimitri not far from where she is. Jen considers this situation an opportunity for herself because she sees Dimitri's left rifle next to his vehicle. Dimitri, who has been caught off guard, tries to calm Jen, who looks eager to kill him. But unfortunately, it turns out that Dimitri only lured her by placing an unloaded weapon far away from him. Dimitri immediately informs his two friends, but he first wants to torture Jen before bringing her to them. Fortunately, Jen manages to grab the knife from Dimitri's pocket. As a result, Jen manages to stab Dimitri, killing him and leaving him in the lake. Jen then continues her escape with all the equipment she got from Dimitri. But the journey doesn't last long because the vehicle she's riding runs out of gas. That means Jen will have to walk again with the branch stuck in her stomach. Not far from there, Jen comes across a cave and intends to rest there for a short while. She is still in pain due to the wounds she suffered, and the scars that are too extreme make it challenging to treat them. Then Jen sees the necklace she is wearing. She suddenly remembers the narcotics she had hidden the other day. At this point, she also recalls the effects that illegal stuff can have on people. Jen then eats it right away without giving it a second thought. Even though it tastes awful, Jen has to eat it because she desperately needs the effects of the drug. Not long after, she starts to feel something different in her body that she can't explain. Then the hallucinogenic effects of the narcotics begin to react, and Jen starts to hear voices and experience severe hallucinations. In a semi-conscious state, she prepares the emergency treatment for her wound. Jen, who now can't feel any pain, finally does an excruciating thing. As the knife slashes through the skin on her abdomen, she looks calm with no expression of pain. After she removes the branch from her stomach, she burns the tin of the drink and places the hotgun on the wound in her stomach to stop the bleeding. The next day, the scene shifts to Stan, still sleeping in the Jeep. It turns out that Richard throws the dead animal since he failed to find Jen and instead got the game. At this moment, they still don't know the condition of Dimitri, who has died. Tan, who has just woken up, walks to the lake to wash his face. But suddenly, he is shocked when he finds Dimitri's dead body emerging from the lake. But unlike Richard, he appears to be suppressing his rage over what happened to his best friend. Plus, he assumes that his friend's death is Jen's doing. They are then left with no choice but to throw their friend's corpse in the lake. After that, Richard vents his temper, blaming Stan that he should have accompanied Dimitri before but instead sitting quietly in the car. They then leave the location while thinking of other ways to locate Jen. Back to Jen, who is recovered from her wounds. She gets the bird symbol from the beer can in her stomach due to the treatment she did before. She then takes her rifle and rushes out of the cave. It turns out to be just a bad dream, and the effects of the drugs cause Jen to have a sinister plan over and over again. Once Jen has fully regained consciousness, she prepares to continue her journey. In other words, the trip this time isn't about escaping but getting back at them. Jen, who looked weak previously, has become a vital and courageous woman. With unstoppable emotions and a shotgun, she looks for Richard and Stan's whereabouts in the desert. On the other side, Richard and Stan have found the quad bike Jane had taken, and they plan to split up to check around the area. Richard then leaves Stan first, while Stan still feels pain in his nose and takes a mirror to check its condition. But he is entirely unaware that the reflection from the mirror he uses lets Jen know where he is. Therefore, Jen doesn't waste any time and rushes to follow where Stan is going. Even though she is barefoot, this injured woman continues to follow him. After circling the desert for some time, Stan's automobile finally begins to run out of fuel, so Jen uses this opportunity to aim directly at him with a weapon plus an ATEX scope. At this moment, Jen, with no experience at all, tries to aim at the vital parts of her target. Unfortunately, the bullet only hit Stan's shoulder, and she could hear Stan's voice screaming in pain. When Jen returns to her feet, she sees that Stan is no longer there. However, observing the bloody trail left on the ground, Jen can trace the attacker's steps. Meanwhile, Stan, who is already injured, puts on a sock to stop the bleeding. On the other hand, Jen has lost track of him when her blood trail stops at a spot where she only finds his shoe. Stan, now hiding, loads his weapon with bullets to kill Jen from behind. However, he appears to be having difficulty aiming due to the gunshot wound to his shoulder. Then, because of the injured hand, the shot missed and luckily only hit Jen in her ear. Jen, already wounded in her ear, immediately runs away while Stan tries to shoot her. With a shard of torchlight, she tries to stop Stan's pursuit. Fortunately for her, Stan is hurt by the glass shards and is currently attempting to remove the fragments stuck to his feet. He then manages to pull the glass out, and because he can no longer run, he returns to the car to chase Jen. The massive wound on his leg makes it difficult for him to step on the accelerator pedal. But because of the anger that overtakes him, he ignores the pain he is experiencing. Jen finally manages to kill the person who had raped her before. After seeing Stan's condition, Jen hears a walkie-talkie call from Richard. As a result, she hears the voice of the guy who nearly murdered her. On the other hand, Richard appears to be very disappointed that he cannot locate Jen. Moreover, Stan did not show up at the location they had previously planned and did not respond to his walkie-talkie call. He is tired and annoyed and finally returns to his house. As Richard gets home, he looks very stressed with the situation he is going through right now. He also thought that Stan, who had not returned, must have been killed by Jen. So he plans to leave the desert by contacting the helicopter pilot to take him. After that, he immediately cleans himself up before leaving the place. But he suddenly hears a suspicious voice, forcing him to check even though he is entirely naked during that time. He thinks Jen has come to the house to kill him, but he finds nothing suspicious inside or outside the home. Richard is startled by the TV sound, and his fear of Jen's arrival suddenly becomes a reality. At this point, Richard seems unable to do anything with the situation, as Jen has targeted him with her shotgun. Jen's shot hit Richard in the stomach, causing them to fight with one another. Finally, after being overwhelmed, Richard forces himself to walk away with a gunshot wound to his abdomen, and Jen continues to chase him, but when Jen is about to enter the room, she is unaware that Richard is waiting to shoot her. Fortunately, the blood flowing from Richard's stomach caught him, prompting Jen to find another way. Richard is now weaker from losing a lot of blood and uses a food wrapper to stop the bleeding. Not long after, Jen finds him and a chase ensues between them. One moment, the blood on the floor causes Jen, who is running, to slip. This situation allows Richard to attack her quickly, and Jen, already weak, can't do much more to confront the man. Finally, Jen is forced to use her ultimate move by attacking the wound in Richard's stomach. She then takes the rifle and kills Richard with her final shot. So, in the end, the three men who abused and almost killed Jen finally get what they deserved, and Jen's revenge is finally over. With the body caked with blood, she takes several satisfying steps outside before turning around when she hears the sound of a helicopter approaching. You guys are fantastic if you have seen this far in the video. Thanks for watching. If our blockbuster recaps amuse you, please remember to ring the notification bell and the subscribe button. Thank you.